So didn't get in depth really at the time on, what was wrong, what was right, what can we do better, what do you want to keep, all those things that are, will be coming up now in the spring. It was really just an evaluation period for me.
Ben McKee with Go Vols 24/7. There's a notion out there at times that up-tempo offenses can be hard for a defensive coordinator to work with. What gave you comfort to not deter you away from working hand in hand with Josh's offense?
Well, the head coach. Our head coach is as genuine and as real as anybody I've been around in terms of, wanting the defense to be successful, wanting special teams, wanting everybody to be successful. So he is the farthest thing from a me guy or an ego guy. He's extremely down to earth, communicates well. I knew that from the first time I flew in here, and he picked me up himself and took me to his house, which I'd never done before. In that circumstance, when you're just, kind of looking at each other to see if it's going to work. So he kind of set that right from the beginning. That's just the type of person he is, and the type of team he wants to have, that he's going to do what's best for the whole team.
How fast can you go, given the fact you brought in some coaches that are familiar with what you have, and the way the month of February is now structured in terms of how much you guys can do with players? How quickly can you put your system in? How do you spoon feed it? You throw it all at once? How do you go about installing?
Yeah. We can go faster than other situations that I've been in because of the fact, like you said, that we have a lot of coaches who have worked with me before. So that's a huge advantage. So definitely faster than other places. And we have, a few players, which is really kind of crazy in this day and age, that you have a few players that have been in this system, really at all levels of the defense. Xavier, Amari, Day, Chat, all levels they've been around, so they can help. So yeah, I would say there's that opportunity, and we do try to throw a lot at them early. It's a whole philosophy. You kind of start out, throw a lot at them, see what they can take in, shrink it down. Once you figure out their strengths and weaknesses and how they learn, it's really important how they learn. And then hopefully build it back up to whole on the other end. But how you get to the other end is really based on the players and how they pick it up. So kind of put in a lot, shrink it way down, to see what they know, and then take it step by step to build it back up.
Hi, Coach. I'm Allie Campbell with TVC News. What excites you about adding Derek Jones to the staff?
DJ is an elite recruiter, an elite motivator, an elite mentor, and technician of the corner position, aside from just being a great person. So he brings an energy to our staff that is really unmatched, just with the way his demeanor every day. Really a high energy guy, and that goes over to everything he does.
Coach Patrick Brown with Go Vols 24/7. You've had, I think, 4 top 15 defenses in the last 6 years. What do you think's allowed your defenses to be so successful, and sort of how would you describe, without giving anything away, how would you sort of describe why your defenses have been so effective?
Good players, number one. It's always the players. But 2, it's having answers. That is the most critical thing, having answers. Because you're always going to get into situations in a game where you have to have an answer for how they're hurting you or how they're attacking you, or you're going to go week to week in college football where offenses change. So that's my job. I think that's why it's worked. Why our stop rate has been so good is because we're going to have answers. We're going to have answers to anything an offense can do to us.
Ryan on the back left.
Ryan Sylvia, Rocky Top Insider. You retained William Inge and Rodney Garner. What was it about those 2 guys that you wanted to keep them on the staff?
Rodney Garner's a legend, so I'm going to start right there. Right, he's really a legend when it comes to coaching D line, and an SEC legend. I think he's extremely well known, and when you watch him, he coaches his players very hard, but he loves them. Right after that, that's like a unique combination. It's how I like to be. Challenge them, work them hard, but make sure they know that you care about them. He's all about that. And Coach Inge is his room, that linebacker room. One of the things I learned during my evaluation period was that linebacker room was the best room on defense, but it was maybe the best room on the team in terms of how close those guys are and how they work together and how he manages his players. That's really a telltale sign when other people talk about your position and say, yeah, we have to be more like the linebackers. I think that shows what kind of coach he is.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
We'll continue with co-defensive coordinator and secondary coach. Raise your hand and we'll get a mic.
Coach Jack London, WTK. How does a guy like TJ Metcalf immediately impact this team right off the bat in training camp?
Well, TJ, actually, I recruited him out of high school. Great kid, great family. But, he's been to Arkansas, played in this league, been to Michigan, played in the Big Ten, and be able to get a kid with that kind of experience to be on the defense, I think he can be an impact early.
Coach, I saw recently where you said you don't deal with softness. What is softness, and what's sort of the opposite of that you demand in players?
Well, for me, just softness is like the non-willingness to put your body on the line for your team you're playing for. I just believe that's how I was raised. That's how I played in the backyard. I mean, you just got to be willing to throw your body on the line for the team you're playing for. So I showed up on tape. Not that you ain't gonna miss tackles and stuff like that. I get it. I haven't played before, but you got to have an innate toughness and a mental toughness to, when things ain't going as well as that you want them to be able to fight through it and continue to play. So.
Emily in the back.
Hi, Coach. Emily Cochran from WBIR. You spent the 2025 season with Knowles. Why was it important for you to, follow him here to Tennessee, and what led to that decision?
Well, Coach Knowles, he a brilliant mind when it come down to defense. I was honored that he wanted me to come with him. I've been knowing him for a long time, but not knowing him like I knew him in 2025. So for him to ask me, it was an honor. To be able to come to Tennessee was an honor. So, and I just want to be around good people. I mean, the staff he put together is excellent. So I'm excited to be here.
Brent Hubbs with VolQuest. What have you learned about your room in the last 6 weeks in terms of returning guys, new guys who've come in maybe in the last 4 weeks? What have you learned about them?
Besides the names? No. These kids really love football. They're really smart. They want to be coached. They're very attentive in meetings. They want to be here. So I think we have something to work with. Now, obviously, we don't have the pads on. We're just doing, some off-season stuff right now. But the way they come to work each day and how excited they are for the work, I think we have a chance.
Hey, Coach, also Bryce VolQuest. You add TJ, as referenced earlier. You add DeJuan. DeJuan, you coached a year ago. But when you've got guys that have been in this building that are looking around, all of a sudden they see a new defensive staff and new in your room, new safeties.
Right.
Does the iron sharpen the iron there? Do you see them kind of get a little more heightened focus of like, I've got to, step on the gas here?
Well, you want them all to be wanting to step on the gas. But like I told them all when I first met with all the group together, that you earn your playing time. Just because I know you or didn't know you, that don't affect playing time. It's all what you do on the field. So I think they all believe that it's going to be performance-based. It's no favorites. Everybody got to earn their job. So as long as you got that kind of culture and everybody feel like they got a chance to win the job, I think you're going to be okay.
Ben McKee with Go Balls 24/7. I'm curious your impression of Edris Farouk and what you think he could potentially develop into.
Well, I recruited he out of high school as well. You know, he up in that Baltimore area. Again, he is smart, catch on to things fast. He moves well. You know, the little bit of tape that I watched from last year, he looked like he got a feel for the game. So I'm excited to coach him. Do y'all really need to use the mic? Y'all saying I got bad hearing?
I'm going to use it because it was handed to me, but hi, Coach. I'm Allie Campbell with TBC News. Can you describe this defensive coaching staff now that it's all complete?
We old. Nah. Nah, it's we got a lot of experience. You know, a lot of guys that's been in different conferences, been around different players, and we didn't mesh well together quickly. So I'm excited to be with this staff. There's a lot of really good coaches in our room, and you know, Knowles is a great leader of men and coaches. So I'm excited.
Coach Patrick Brown with Go Vols 24/7. Coach Knowles talked about how having some guys he's familiar with, both on the team and on the staff, is going to sort of help that learning curve. How much of a learning curve was there for you last year when he came to Penn State and you sort of had to learn his defense, how he wants to teach it, and things like that?
Yeah, anytime you're going into a new system, it's going to be a learning curve. That was probably the third defensive system or fourth defensive system that I had been in since I had been at Penn State. So, but, you know, it's just like anything. You know, they start throwing up. It's more the terminology than the system itself. There's some different things that he do that the other systems I've been in we hadn't done, but it's more just the terminology, especially on the back end. The back end, you're going to have cover 2, you're going to have cover 4, you're going to have cover 3, you're going to have man coverage. It's just the terminology of how you want to play it. Appreciate you. Y'all have a good one.
We'll continue with Leo's coach, Senior Jackson. Question?
Brent Hubbs with VolQuest. What led you here, and what's the last 3 or 4 weeks been like just settling in here?
Opportunity to work with Coach Knowles again. He helped me through a little turmoil I was going through. My mom passed last season in February. Basically gave me something to do to get past that. Opportunity to come to Tennessee, a great place, work with Coach Heupel. Another opportunity to come back to the SEC and coach Garner. Definitely was an eye-opening and opportunity for me too.
Emily in the back.
You mentioned Knowles giving you something to help you get over the loss of your mom. What was that, and can you kind of go into detail about that?
Sure. He's a tough love kind of guy. I think he had known I was going through some grief, so I think he knows keeping busy, the love I have for the game, and give me tasks to do just so I'm not sitting there sulking. I think he took special note to that and helped me through it.
Adam?
You have some experience with Chaz Coleman. He didn't play a ton of snaps last year, but it seems to be everybody is unanimous in that he has a really high ceiling. What is it that you guys saw in games, but also in practice, that led you to believe that?
Even though he was a young guy, he played the game with a recklessness and a sixth sense he had about him. He was the first thing caught our eyes were him running to the ball, even though he didn't know what to do. His hustle, his effort, him trying to play really strong and being fearless against kids that were older than him or bigger than him or stronger than him. He really had no fear.
Yeah.
Ben McKee with 24/7 Sports. Curious just your overall thoughts on your room and what you like about it going in the spring, what you need to work on.
Young and inexperienced so far, but a lot of good football minds, hungry, willing to learn, really receptive to coaching, want to be good, really competitive.
kind of a follow-up to Coach Knowles. I mean, Coach Poindexter worked for him for a year, came here. You obviously have a lot of praise for what he did for you personally. What is it about his personality? Why do people apparently seemingly want to gravitate to him? What is that?
I know you guys seem like between the lines looks like a crusty old man, but he actually has big personality. He's one of the more funny people I've ever been around. Good person, good human being, gets it. Loves what he does, loves teaching. Like he's just a perfect leader of men, like Coach said. Coach Poindexter said, he's an all-around just good guy you want to be around.
Staying in the back.
Kind of going, Sam Rothman, WATE. Kind of going off of that, talking about this coaching staff. A lot of you have experience with Coach Knowles, but then also you mentioned Rodney Garner, William Inch here, players who have been here, players that you guys have brought in. Just how much does that help, just having this kind of melting pot in that room?
Well, with the coaching staff in general, a wealth of experience. I'm the youngest guy on the staff in the defensive room, but they're all humble. They've all had great experiences. I mean, Coach Poindexter is a Hall of Famer. Knowles is a Boros finalist. I'm assuming Coach Garner is going to end up in the Hall of Fame as well, but they're just still willing to teach, and they love the game. They love being around these kids for the right reasons, where there's no egos, and they just want to go out here and win.
Patrick Brown with GoVols 24/7. Another guy that you guys brought in from Penn State was Xavier on the defensive line. What did you guys like about him? How did you kind of see him sort of grow as his role increased last season?
Really raw talent, really quick, flexible kid. Has a lot of power, a lot of high potential. Was pushing his way to almost into a starting role at Penn State, and I think he's a kid that really bought into the system and how he was being coached and wanted to take his game to the next level and move on from Penn State.
You mentioned being the youngest on the defensive staff. What lesson have you learned from one of the other defensive coaches that has really stuck with you so far at Tennessee?
Sometimes you got to sit there, shut up, figure out what's going on before you talk. Don't put the cart before the horse.
Yeah. We'll finish with Allie.
Hi, I'm Allie Campbell from TVC News. Expanding on the defensive coaching staff, what does Derek Jones bring to this group?
The Cheetah Man. I mean, excellent recruiter, leader of men, well known for how he interacts with the kids. Even though, we have an older staff, guys like Cheetah, they still are able to relate to the younger players and get them to get the best out of those guys.
Where does the nickname Cheetah come from?
I'll let him tell the story. I don't want to mess it up.
You really call him Cheetah?
You'll find out. You'll find out. No problem. Thank you, guys.
We'll finish with quarterbacks coach Derek Jones. All right, we'll start in the back with this. I think we know.
Hi, Emily Ray Cochran from WBIR. I've been dying to ask you this question. It's kind of like a perfect time, but where does the name Cheetah come from? I see it all over your Twitter, and it's your Twitter handle as well. So where does the story come from?
Well, really, it's a nickname that came. I actually used to be a pretty fast guy, back in my day, but that has evaporated. But when I got to Duke, I've always used Cheetah as a coaching phrase. And David Cutcliffe, who I worked for 14 years of my career, was very big on us making one-word phrases in coaching. It was back during the era of hurry-up offenses, and he wanted us to be able to coach on the run as opposed to giving dissertations. So Cheetah is a one-word phrase that means a lot of different things. And what it means is key to hip of the defender. And you can use it in tackling, you can use it in coverage, you can use it in pursuit. And when I got to Duke, I think the program had won maybe 10 games in 8 years. I had two seniors in my room who had 2 0-11 seasons. So I was trying to find something to give us a brand. Social media was just getting going. I mean, it was just Facebook back then. There was no Twitter, there was no TikTok, there was no Instagram. And so I wanted to give my group an identity. And so I came up with Cheetahs. And the unique thing about it is a pack of cheetahs is called a coalition. And a coalition is a group. So you look at a secondary. And when you think about it, cheetahs generally hunt alone, But when they do hunt, they will only hunt with their brothers. So that's the unity piece of it. So I came up with that, started calling my group the Coalition. Twitter came into play a couple of years later, and the rest is history. I became Coach Cheetah.
Coach Jacqueline and WTK, what excites you about Ty Redmond kind of taking that next step this year?
You know, I think anytime that you have a chance to coach a player with that amount of potential, you look at every aspect of it. And you look at every aspect in the sense of how you can help him grow. You know, I'm big on coaching not only on the field, but off the field. I think if you only coach the player, they'll never reach their full potential. You have to also coach the person. So you coach the person, that's where the trust is built. And you're coaching habits. So just getting to know not only him, but all the rest of the guys. And, you know, it's kind of a blank canvas. I've had a chance to meet with them twice and just kind of see where the group is and trying to find out where they are individually. And it's a young group, and he's a young guy. So really excited about being able to connect with him, get to know him, allow him to get to know me, and the growth comes.
Hey, Coach, Austin Price, FallQuest. When you were sitting there a couple weeks ago and Coach Hunter leaves, how quickly did you, kind of, hey, Coach Knowles, I want a shot at this thing. Obviously, we know each other, that type of thing. And then kind of what was your, having coached with Coach Cutcliffe, obviously his affinity for this place, what did you know about Tennessee football all these years?
Well, the first part of the question is I know an awful lot about Tennessee because I was a graduate assistant for Coach Cutcliffe when he first left Tennessee. So a lot of the traditions, a lot of the history, the game maxims, just hearing about so much and being on staff with guys like Marion Hobby, you just learned a lot. Coach Cutcliffe talked a lot to Coach Pat Summitt and a lot of the same leadership things. So it was a part of my early DNA. And then being with him at Duke as a full-time coach for 12 years, a lot of the same things. Him and Coach Fulmer still interacted a lot and met a lot of people from Tennessee, worked with a lot of people from Tennessee, in that regard. So understanding it, being an SEC guy, knowing how successful, that they had been, that was a huge, huge part of, my upbringing in the coaching profession. The rules, they go on and you look back and Coach will pull out a, binder that he listened to from Johnny Majors. Coach Majors got a chance to come visit us, a couple of different times. So that was a lot of my young foundation in coaching and a lot of the principles that I still use, today. Matter of fact, I taught my guys something this morning that I learned from David Cutcliffe, and I don't know if he learned it from his days at Tennessee, but it's kind of the carryover. And the second part of the question is, Coach Knowles and I are really good friends. We worked together for 8 years and had been around each other. And when he first came here, him and I were in a little bit of communication and, was really happy for him that he got that job. And actually, when Coach Knowles reached out to me the other day, I was actually at another institution checking into a hotel, maybe looking into a situation there, and he and I talked a little bit more the next day, and he told me, he said, don't take the job, we want to work towards this. So he and I talked a little bit more, and we were able to get on the phone with Coach Heupel and talk through some things. And again, David Cutcliffe being very instrumental, in the process. Coach Heupel having a lot of respect for him. Coach Cutcliffe being on my reference page. Actually, Dr. Kevin White, who was the athletic director at Duke for my 12 years there, is the father of Danny White. I went to school with Michael White. So there was a lot of different connections that made this thing happen really fast.
Standing in the back.
Back here, Sam Rothman, WATE, kind of going off of that. You talked a little bit about social media as well. From the moment you stepped foot on campus, you've been posting pictures and videos of the athletic facilities campus. Just why are you so excited to be here and for this opportunity?
I think anytime you take a job, you've got to take a job and jump in with both feet. And I've been able to use social media over the course of my career in a lot of different ways. In the recruiting process, we don't get a chance to interact in person with these young men, nowhere near the way that we used to. And so what I do is I use social media to be able to sell myself, to be able to sell the institution that I'm working at, to be able to sell the people that I'm working with and around. And people see that. I've got a pretty good formula where I get up in the morning and I put up 3 quotes generally, and they rotate all day. I'll generally come back at night and put another one up. But I want people to understand, the excitement of Tennessee football, the tradition of Tennessee football. And what it does is it allows me to reach decision makers because they can go back and read through my timeline and they can see the type of person I am. They can see the type of coach I am. They can see my level of intellect. They can see how I interact with my wife and my family. And it gives you a chance to sell yourself before you meet a lot of people. Generally, when I walk into a high school, somebody in that high school is already going to know who I am, and I've never met them, and it's because of social media. So it's just a tool that has worked for me for a long time. I think when you own social media, you have to be consistent. So that's why you're seeing all that stuff. And one of the things I found out, you know, in my days, people will try to rival you in that aspect, but it's hard to be creative for one, and it's even harder to be creative and consistent. So it's just another level of competition.
Brent Hobbs with VolQuest. I know you've only been here a couple of days, so you probably don't have an assessment really of what your group looks like, but I'm curious as to what a corner looks like, is supposed to look like for you. What are the intangibles? What are the physical traits? What are you looking for? And you say that guy's a good corner. He can be a good corner.
You know, the number one thing I'm looking for is not physical. I mean, it's mentality. It's the mindset of the guy. You know, it's how competitive is he? You know, is he a guy that's going to be okay when things go bad? How's he going to react when adversity hits and all of that? And some of the guys have that naturally, generally, but it's also something that you have to continue to coach and instill. And from the physical part, you know, you're just looking for a guy that's a good football player. You're looking for a guy that's agile. You're looking for a guy that has good ball skills, but you're looking for a guy that's competitive. And, you know, my job is to be able to look at the group once I get to know them and see who's good at what. You know, a coach's job is to be able to look at the group that he has and say, how do I coach this guy as opposed to how do I coach this guy? Because they're not all the same. Some guys are going to have talents that others doesn't have. You know, some guys may be bigger than some guys. So you've got to be able to look at your entire group and say, okay, what tools do I need to equip this guy with to help him, as opposed to what tools do I need to equip this guy with to help him? Because I may have one technique that a bigger guy plays that a small guy can't play because he doesn't have the arm length. Whereas if I've got a guy with quicker feet, he can do something that a bigger guy may not be able to do. So I'm excited to be able to get into spring ball, assess these guys, and see what I can do to make all of them better at the craft.
Hi, Allie Campbell with TBC News. On a bit of a sillier note, there's lots of girl dads in Tennessee coaching now, with Josh Elander now being the head baseball coach. He's talked about integrating his daughters into his coaching lifestyle. How do you plan to do that here on Rocky Top?
You know, well, I've got 3, and 2 of them are adults now and kind of living their own life. But my middle one, her name's Madison. I think she's kind of been like my agent through this whole thing. You know, she was trying to talk to me last week about, don't take this job. Well, maybe you should go here. Maybe you should do that. And, you know, really excited to be, you know, a part of Knoxville. It's so funny. She was telling me the other day because she recently moved back to the Raleigh-Durham area. And I talked to her on the phone briefly the other day. And right before she got off the phone, she was like, well, and I'm probably moving to Knoxville this year, but I'll talk to you about that later, which I didn't know that. But I think the biggest one and the most excited one is my baby girl, Brooklyn. She's a senior in high school. And over the course of the last couple of weeks, you know, it's really been enlightening to be able to be home and be around her, because as coaches, we don't get a chance to be around a lot. So, you know, not having a job at the time and being able to be home and spend time, I've been able to kind of help navigate her through the process of choosing a school. And we had a very enlightening moment a few weeks ago. She didn't get accepted into a school, and she was really in the dumps. You know, she's never been an athlete, so she's doesn't understand rejection. She's never had a boyfriend, so she's never been broken up with, never had a heart broken. And, you know, she just had this real somber look on her face. And I explained to her that rejection ultimately leads us to where we're supposed to go. And I talked to her about growing up in South Carolina. I wanted to go to Clemson. And that was my dream. I saved all the letters Clemson sent me. I knew all of their players. I had all the stuff on the wall. But Clemson didn't initially offer me a scholarship. So it caused me to open up my horizon, and Ole Miss recruited me. And I explained to her very clearly, had I gotten my dream of going to Clemson, I wouldn't have met your mom, and there wouldn't have been no you. So just in that moment, being able to share that with her, that's something I'll always remember. She came over and hugged me later, and it was a special moment. And then the other night, when everything was final with the University of Tennessee, I look over and she's on a laptop looking at the University of Tennessee nursing school. So hopefully, not pressing her, hopefully we can get her to maybe want to be a volunteer ourselves. So that would be the ultimate gift for me. But I'm going to let her make her own decision.
Time for one more. All right, thank you.
All right, thank y'all.